Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and today we're actually talking about the US government because the US government is attempting to rein in the app stores of Apple and Google, and here's what's going on. This is coming from Reuters. Now, a bipartisan trio of senators introduced a bill that would rein in app stores of companies they say exert too much market control, which is essentially Apple and Google. Now, these senators are Richard Blumenthal, Democrat, Amy Klobuchar, Democrat, and Senator Marsha Blackburn, Republican, and they all sponsored this bill, which would basically bar big app stores from requiring app providers to use their payment system. It would also prohibit them from punishing apps that offer different prices or conditions through another app or another app store or payment system. And to quote Senator Blumenthal in an interview yesterday, I found this predatory abuse of Apple and Google so deeply offensive on many levels. Their power has reached a point where they are impacting the whole economy and stifling and strangling innovation. Now, Senator Blumenthal said he expected companion legislation in the House of Representatives very soon. Now, obviously, stakes are way more high for Apple than they are for Google here, and I'll get to that, because the Apple App Store anchors basically its $53.8 billion services business, essentially as the smartphone market has matured, meaning that is a good chunk of Apple's revenue, way more than Google's. Now, Apple says that its App Store was, quote, an unprecedented engine of economic growth and innovation, one that now supports more than 2.1 million jobs across all 50 states. Google actually declined to comment to Reuters, but a spokesperson previously cited company statements that Android devices often come preloaded with 2 or more app stores, and app sellers can allow downloads without using the Play Store. So, basically, what Google is saying is our platform's a lot more open. We are not locking you into an ecosystem like Apple. With Apple, you have to go to the App Store, but with Google, you can go to other Play stores or other, I should say, Google App Stores, download that, and download apps from there, buy apps from there, and we're good with that. It's an open and flexible system. Now, I'll get to that in a bit. Now, this bill won praise from Spotify, Epic Games, and Tile. Tile, which makes those little tags basically to find lost objects, complained earlier this year about Apple launching basically its own Tile product. And therefore, by virtue of that, the concern obviously from Tile would be, well, if somebody's searching for this, they're going to downplay our app to raise up Apple's because it's their own product. And here we go, quashing competition. Now, a similar law revision actually was introduced into South Korea. Google said last year it would enforce certain in-app payment methods and receive 30% commission fees from non-game digital content. Apple controls Apple's control over its apps on the store and its 15 to 30% commission on digital sales have come under regulatory scrutiny. Recently, a federal judge, in reviewing the testimony to rule on an antitrust lawsuit by Epic Games, they created Fortnite, talked about this. Epic, though, also sued Google for its App Store practices, as basically a big group of state attorney generals, alleged that Google is unlawfully working to maintain a monopoly for its App Store for Android phones. So we're going to see where this goes, but I think this is actually a really interesting thing. Both Google and Apple, by virtue of their mobile phone market, essentially rule the mobile phone market. If you're not on an Android, you're on an Apple, and if you're not on an Apple, you're on an Android. There really are there no competitors. There might be 2 people out there with a BlackBerry or a person out there with a Windows mobile phone, but that's about it. And speaking of which, I've got a Windows mobile phone in the drawer because, one, it had DOS on it, and I thought that was cool, but I never really used the phone because, Android and Apple. So I think this is interesting, but one of the things I take exception to with Google is that while it's an open ecosystem, and so they say, well, hey, anybody can go download an app from another store that isn't run by Google, and you can pay the apps there. One, Google's App Store is a behemoth compared to other Android app stores. So I might, let's say as a developer, cross-publish, but my revenue is coming from the Google Play Store. There's no doubt about that compared to the others, because the others aren't huge. Also, Google themselves continuously cites studies that show that the vast majority of infections that come from Android come from third-party app stores. And so by virtue of that, I might be side-loading something from another app store into my Android, and I am more prone to infection. So on one hand, they're saying you'll probably get infected if you go to a third-party store, so stick with Google Play. But on the other hand, they're saying You don't have to go to Google Play. You can go anywhere you want. So don't ding us for money. So I think that's a very interesting thing. This obviously affects Apple more because Google obviously makes their money primarily through advertising and basically giving you free services that can data mine you so they can advertise to you better. Apple doesn't have that. Apple's a little more privacy centric, although I've done videos and podcasts showing that they are not as privacy centric as they say. Look for a couple of days ago when they basically said we're going to start scanning all of your iPhones for essentially child exploitation content. And obviously nobody wants to see children exploited, but they're getting their hooks into your device directly, not just in the cloud. So I think this is going to be really interesting. If either one of these is going to fight tooth and nail, it's absolutely going to be Apple. But I can see these two being massive competitors actually teaming up, with their army of lawyers to defend themselves in federal court. We'll see where this goes, but that is your news of the day. And if you're an app developer, it's probably really good news for you, especially if these bills pass, which I have to imagine President Biden would sign into law. So that, I should say, is your news of the day. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP, or please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please stay private. Thanks, everyone.